Thank you. I wanted to respond to some of the things I've heard on the floor today. This has been a topic I have been immersed in up to my eyeballs for over a decade. I can't count how many legal research articles and law review articles, etc. So one question we have is, well, it's in Article 5. Why would it be in there if we weren't intended to use it? Well, when our founding fathers wrote Article 5, they actually have two mechanisms for amending our Constitution. The first one goes through Congress, goes to the states. We see it in black and white. We see exactly what we're voting on. That is the only method that has ever been used for the 27 amendments we have. Then we have this wildly untested method that we're talking about today. Now, I believe the reason our founding fathers put that in there, they had no idea how this thing was going to work out. They were starting a whole new country on a model that had never been tried anywhere before. And so they thought, you know, we hope this is going to work out. We think we have some good ideas here. Seems sensible. But it might be a flaming train wreck. It's entirely possible in 20 years the thing didn't work out at all and they have to completely go back to the drawing board and start from scratch and write a whole new constitution. That's what this is. This is a whole new convention. We're going to start from scratch and write a new constitution. That's in the flaming train wreck scenario. That is not where we are, people. We have an incredible country. We have the longest lasting, most successful constitution on earth. We are the greatest country on earth. We are not a flaming train wreck where we have to just go back to the starting board and start all over. Do we have problems? Sure. Is our national debt too big? Absolutely. We should do something about it. But this is not the thing to do. This is something we can address our national debt within the structures that we have. We don't need to risk burning down our entire system of government to address the debt. Nor do we have any reason to think that addressing the debt is what would even come out of this thing. The Congressional Research Service, they wrote a 43-page document. I urge you all to read it. There's lots of legal analysis in there. It's pretty clear that there's absolutely no way to confine this convention to any topics whatsoever. So this is just nice window dressing in here. They're like, oh, we want them to talk about term limits and limiting the debt and balanced budget. There is no reason at all that they have to do that. They could absolutely get in there and say, we want to shut down the First Amendment, shut down the Second Amendment, and the Electoral College. They can do anything they want, and that is crystal clear from this analysis, that any limitations are null and void on what they can discuss when they get in there. We also have absolutely no idea who's going to do the deciding. Now, I've heard in this debate, and I've heard elsewhere, well, there's nothing to worry about because in the end, it all has to go through this ratification process. So we'll all have the final say. There can't be anything really kooky that happens because we'll get to shoot it down later. That is not a safeguard that you should count on at all. And history will tell you otherwise. So the original convention, as was discussed in 1787, they went in under the rules of the Articles of Confederation, which required 100% ratification. They got in, they said, you know what, 100% is too hard, let's knock it down to 75%. And those became the new rules for ratification. There is no reason this new convention couldn't do exactly the same thing. They could get in and say, 3/4 of the states is too hard, let's knock it down to half. So don't believe that we have this safeguard of a 75% ratification. One more thing, doesn't need to be by the legislatures. The Constitution in Article 5 says it can be by legislatures or conventions. No guidelines around what the conventions are. And that's, again, this is all contained within a half a sentence in the U.S. Constitution. So we're in very uncharted territory on how this could all play out. But again, history gives us some guidance. Those conventions can be rigged. Congress can decide who gets to be in those conventions. We aren't necessarily going to be the ones who decide whether Idaho approves or not. Congress can pick 50 of their best friends and they can be the convention that decides whether Idaho ratifies the Constitution. This happened in the 21st Amendment. Congress was worried about whether they were going to get enough approvals from the state legislatures, so they bypassed some of the state legislatures. In Utah, anybody think Utah is a big heavy drinking state? Somehow, they managed to set up a convention in Utah that ratified with 100% approval the repeal of prohibition. Seem odd? This is the sort of stuff that can happen. Congress has total control over this process. Ratification should give you zero comfort. The existing rules around ratification can be completely gutted, reworked, can bypass us. Anything can come out of this process. Now, I sat in the committee where this was discussed. They flew in the big guns. I got to hear Rick Santorum say, there is no possible way this can go awry. You have my word for it. There is no possibility of a runaway convention. But for every guy like that, I can roll out, between 5 and 10 constitutional law professors, Supreme Court justices, and federal judges who will say, absolutely, there's a risk of a runaway convention. And really, the only certainty here is that there is uncertainty. The only thing we are sure of, you ask 100 scholars, you will get very different questions across the board on whether there is a very real possibility of a runaway convention or nothing to worry about here. But when you're looking at this degree of risk, how can we, in good conscience, subject our most precious document to this kind of risk? We can't take the Constitution and bet it all on black and hope for the best. It is too precious. It is what we are built on. And that's really what I want to close on here. We can fix our problems through the conventional amendment process if we decide we really want a balanced budget amendment. We can put more heat on Congress to balance the budget. This is not the way to do it, because the thing that makes our Constitution so absolutely amazing is the universal buy-in. That's the secret sauce, I think, even more than the content. The content is terrific, but the thing that makes it amazing is that everybody from Bernie Sanders to Steve Bannon, from Alana Rubel to Judy Boyle, hopefully you have our article on your desk, absolutely everybody of every political stripe believes in our Constitution to the fiber of their being. We don't agree on anything in America anymore. There is no unity, and no, people can't agree what color the sky is or which way is up, but we all agree that we love our Constitution and would die for it. And we would lose that. That is the most precious secret sauce that we will lose if it goes through this process. Because, maybe you'll get your way in it, maybe I'll get my way in it. Somebody's going to find some way to jam what they want down the throats of the other half of America that doesn't want it. And maybe they'll win, and they think they had a victory for that day because they got to stick in the thing in the Constitution that they wanted, that a bunch of people, other people didn't want. But what you end up with is a document that doesn't have buy-in anymore. What you end up with is a document that half of America's ticked off about, that feels like they had it stuck to them and that they're going to spend the rest of their life plotting to overturn. We would have destroyed something so unspeakably precious in that scenario. It's not a win. I mean, if I got to be the one who went and rewrite the Constitution and I could put every single thing I wanted in there, it would not be a win because half of you would hate it. And we wouldn't have a Constitution that everybody loves and supports anymore. The stakes are so incredibly high on this that this is not a throwaway vote, folks. We're getting dangerously close to the threshold where this actually happens. And I think it's time for us to do the right thing, stop this in its tracks, and stand up for our beloved Constitution. This is a dangerous plan. I know it has all the good intent in the world, but it leads us down a really dangerous road with the most important thing that we have. So I hope you will give this bill a no. I only wish I had a hell no button on my phone.